Joining us to cover all the topics we talked about today: Eagles at training camp, Sixers offseason, Phillies made a trade today. How about them apples? Tom Moore, sports columnist for the Bucks County Courier-Times, joins us right now on the phone here on 97.3 ESPN. Tom, how you doing today?
All right, Josh, how are you?
I'm doing well, and the Phillies have finally satisfied my trade itch. I've been saying for days, Tom, that the Flyers made more trades in a week than the Phillies and Sixers did in several months, and now we finally get a Phillies trade. They get a pitcher. Is it a good enough pitcher, Tom?
Well, here's the thing. I saw Jason Stark, the great Jason Stark from ESPN, tweeted out that Anderson's 18 starts, he's pitched at least 5 innings in all 18. His ERA is a little over 4. But, when you're trotting out Matt Moore and Velasquez and Spencer Howard and earlier Chase Anderson, you don't know what you're going to get. And a lot of times you might only get 3 or 4 innings from these guys. So, you're not going to get a difference maker here. But if you get a guy that can give you 5 innings and give up 2 runs and keep you in games and not burn your bullpen, and it cost you a couple of single-A prospects, I guess a catcher, and a young pitcher, that's the kind of move that you can make, which should help. I would assume, Dombrowski's going to probably get some relief help, whether they are able to get a center fielder or a position player. I'm not sure. It depends what they're willing to give up. As I said, these were young, high A prospects doing well at that level, but you got to go to AA and AAA and the majors. You're 3 steps from getting where you need to go. So, it's a risk that, if you're trying to win now and they're, I guess, 3.5 games back, and it looks like they're going to, I don't know about go all in, but they're going to be more buyers than sellers at this point. It makes sense, and it does help you, and it addresses one of your needs. You probably could use another starter, honestly, with, how poor all those other guys, have been. But this at least helps, and he was supposed to pitch, I think, today. So
yes.
I don't know when, I don't know if that means maybe he'll pitch tomorrow now or Thursday. I don't know how how the rotation will be shuffled around, with Eflin out too. That hurts, not having a guy who really has been your second best starter this year.
Yeah, I know the speculation out there among the baseball people is that Anderson would start Thursday because Wheeler's scheduled to start tomorrow. And Girardi confirmed today to the media that Spencer Howard would be good to go for Saturday. So maybe you piggyback Velasquez on the Howard for Saturday's game. But like you said, Anderson is a guy, he goes 5 innings or more every start, and he gives you some consistency, and he's also a left-hander. You know how Philly fans have been desperate for left-handed starters in Philadelphia after they were spoiled for so long with guys like Hamels and Cliff Lee years ago. Now you finally get 2 lefties in a rotation, although the one of them is Matt Moore.
Yeah, Matt Moore, I don't know that he's going to necessarily. He might end up being one of those piggyback guys, too. He's kept them in games, and ironically, their record is better in Matt Moore starts than Aaron Nola starts, which isn't necessarily a reflection of Matt Moore, per se. It is maybe the fact that they've had some comeback wins, or they've had some games where they've scored a lot of runs and outscored the other teams, essentially. But yeah, maybe Anderson will pitch Thursday. The former Pirate, and he's on a 1-year deal. He's 31. He's been around. He's pitched for the Rockies, and he's been around. So he's a guy who has some experience. It's a kind of low risk. I won't say high reward, but it could be a decent reward. As I said, if he's made 18 starts. If he just keeps making starts and gives you 5 innings, 5 1/3, 5 2/3, 6 innings. That's a big upgrade and keeps you in games. That's a significant upgrade from, Velasquez, did his typical, he's figured it out, he's got it. And then his last 2 starts, he was horrendous. And Moore has been disappointing. Really, a lot of the guys Dombrowski has signed, Kinsler, have been really disappointing. Joyce have really not played very well this year. So he's got to address it and they're going to have to pretty much win the division. You look at the numbers, being a wild card, they have to catch the Padres, and they'd have to really go on a run. Really, it's win the NL East or bust, pretty much, unless something crazy happens.
Tom Moore joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN at Tom Moore Philly on Twitter. Covers all the Philly sports teams for Bucks County Courier Times, sports columnist over there. Tom, I asked the question earlier in the show, could last night's game-winning home run by McCutchen be the thing that propels this team out of their mediocrity? They started the month 10-4, then they lost both games to the Yankees. They split the series with the Braves. Last night was looking pretty tedious, and then McCutchen gets that home run. Could that win last night be the thing that turns this team around?
I mean, you'd like to think so, but to me, I mean, they beat the Nationals. They beat a team that isn't very good, that's not going to the playoffs. If maybe they had done it against the Mets, or the Padres or the Brewers or, a playoff team, a good team, I would say maybe. I mean, because they've done this before. They've had moments, they've had stretches where they play well. They've had some dramatic wins, extra inning wins, walk-off wins, and haven't really seemed to, build on it. So, as I said, while you'd like to think it is, I think it's a bit of a stretch at this point. A sub-500 team at home in a game where you really did not play very well as shortstop. Gregorius you're really seeing the warts, and not just in the field at the plate. To me, I would have a 3-man rotation with Gregorius, Bohm, and Torreyes. And I play Torreyes almost every day, whether you alternate him at short and third, whatever you do. But just because he's the best defender of the three at short and at third. And Bohm really isn't hitting, and Gregorius isn't hitting. So to me, you go for the guy who's a better defender, and a guy who has a better average than the other two guys, too. Not as much power, but has had some big hits and has outperformed what anybody would expect. And to me, that's what I would do. I'm sure Zach Wheeler would prefer that, and Aaron Nola.
Absolutely. Tom, also looking ahead, you mentioned how they need more pitching. I did find it interesting that they didn't get Richard Rodriguez from Pittsburgh along with Tyler Anderson in this deal, considering they need bullpen help. But we also know they need help in the lineup. That center field is basically the equivalent of Odubel Herrera and Luke Williams and company being out there is like putting duct tape on a hose that you need to replace in your car.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, you put the duct tape on there, so you need some help out there in center field. I know Starling Marte, a lot of Philly fans are messaging me throughout the last 2 weeks saying, we need Starling Marte. So if you're the Phillies, what do you prioritize then? Do you get a little more hitting depth and take care of center field with a rental, or do you go out and get more pitching to get you more depth out there?
Yeah, well, it also, to me, Josh, it would come down to cost. If you're going to get Starling Marte or Chris Bryant, it's probably going to cost you more than a decent reliever than like Rodriguez, let's say. Somebody like that would probably be a prospect or two. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, how all in are you? Because to me, do you think is it all about just making the playoffs, or you actually think when you get in the playoffs, like Dombrowski said earlier, with the top three, he thinks they could compete with anybody in a best of 5 or best of 7 series. But the way they play defense, and their struggles in general in terms of with runners in scoring position, I'm not sure that even if you add a reliever, I don't know that this team has enough, to compete with the Dodgers and the Giants. And I know they beat the Brewers in a series earlier this year, but in a 5 or 7 game playoff series, I'm not sure that this team, would be able to beat those kinds of teams. So to me, it depends what you're trying to do here. What's your goal? Is to win it all, you have to upgrade in center field, because center field, even though Jankowski's been okay until he became the umpteenth Philly going on the COVID list, he's not going to be a difference maker in the playoffs. That's the biggest black hole you have, and you could probably use a bench bat too, which maybe you could get somebody like that for a single A prospect or something like that, or another kind of relatively minor deal.
Tom Moore joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at Tom Moore Philly, sports columnist for the Bucks County Courier Times. Tom, you also covered the Sixers for a very long time. I want to ask you about the Sixers because, there's a lot of smoke going on around this team. You got Windhorst reporting that the Phillies are a top suitor for Kyle Lowry. You have Jake Fisher reporting that the Raptors and the Sixers are deep in the talks, or more advanced talk they have about any team about Ben Simmons. You have Woj suggesting that he wouldn't be surprised the Sixers get a deal for Ben Simmons done this week. Shams is tweeting out there that Kyle Lowry would like to go to the Sixers. It seems like there's all this smoke around this Lowry, Simmons, Sixers, Raptors thing. So what do we buy into all? Do we buy anything into all of this?
Well, I mean, apparently Lowry wants 3 years and $90 million. And to me, at 35 years old, that doesn't make sense to me. If he was 31, maybe, something like that, that would be reasonable. But I don't know that you're going to give up Ben Simmons and the best player you're getting back. No offense to Kyle Lowry from, Cardinal Doherty and Villanova, but I don't think that's enough. I think that would be more of a sign and trade, with Danny Green or something like that, possibly. If the best player they get back for Ben Simmons is Kyle Lowry, to me, that's not enough. You need to get another star and a guy in the prime of his career, or at least is going to give you a couple more quality, high-level all-star years. And Kyle Lowry's very good, but as I said, he's 35. If they could have got him at the trade deadline this past year in the final year of a contract, that would have made sense to me. But I don't understand, and I'm not sure. Now, maybe if it's a 3-team deal where Lowry goes somewhere else and Simmons goes there, and they get somebody from a third team, I could see something like that. But to me, it doesn't make sense that if he's the centerpiece in a package for Ben Simmons, I'm pretty sure you can do better than that.
Tom, I'm glad you said 3-team deal, because I have been scratching my head now for a couple of weeks now that I don't see a scenario where a mano-a-mano deal for the Sixers is going to be their benefit, because a lot of the teams that have called supposedly of interest in them don't really all have the best options for them. So, okay, maybe you have to get 2-3 teams involved, and Daryl Morey has a history of that, does he not, of getting multiple teams involved in these kind of trades?
Yeah, he's the master of the blockbuster. I mean, he acquired Harden in 2012 from Oklahoma City, when he was with the Rockets. He has traded for some, major, some all-stars and made some blockbuster moves. So, yeah, it's just, maybe they could get, a star from one team and then a very good supporting player from another team. But, I think he'd prefer, Damian Lillard. But if that happens, that he's going to be on the market, and that sounds like he's not, but it sounds like he could. He's 31. They lost in the first round this past year. He averaged 35 against the Nuggets. Played tremendously. He's only been past. I think he made the conference finals once, and only won 2 other playoff series in whatever it is, 10 years there. So it's been a long time and not a lot of success. So if he says, I want to be traded, a lot of teams are going to probably give, be willing to give up a lot. And to me, if the Sixers are going to land him, it's going to have to be, it would have to be Simmons. It would probably have to be Maxey. It would have to be one other player, whether it's Thibault or, whatever they want, Curry, whatever. And a pick or two, first-round pick or two, and possible, pick swaps too. It's going to be a massive package to get Lillard, even though he's 31. He's got 2 more years on his contract, and then I believe he's got another year. He's got 3 more years on his contract, and he's got a player option. So you have him for at least 3 years. So your window to win now is 3 or 4 years. Embiid's 27. He should be in the prime of his career. Those 2 guys playing together, a 2-man game, assuming Tobias Harris is still here, that's a pretty good core, and that's 2, elite top 10 players in the NBA together. But it's going to take a lot probably to get him unless something unforeseen happens.
Tom Moore joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, sports columnist for the Bucks County Courier Times, covering all the top Phillies stories of the day with us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Tom, I'm going to flip it over to the Eagles. I want to get your thoughts on this whole Zach Ertz situation, because Zach Ertz reports training camp. Obviously, there was speculation he would be traded this offseason. It didn't happen. What are your thoughts on the whole thing? Do you think Ertz should stay here? Do you think a team is just buying their time? What do you think?
Well, it sounds like they couldn't get more than like a 6th-round pick for him, and they weren't going to just give him away. I think it's pretty clear Goddard is the number 1 tight end. I guess you wait and you hope that, maybe somebody has an injury, maybe a contender has an injury, and really needs a tight end, and then the price tag goes up a little bit. I don't think he'll be a distraction, but, he was the guy here. He was the star. His goal was to break Witten's single-season record for, receptions and tight end yardage, passing yardage in a season, and it's just kind of it just hasn't worked out, for a number of reasons. Very good at catching the ball, but not nearly as good after the catch as somebody like Goddard. So, I guess they'll hold on to him and see. It's not the worst thing to have him, but to have a guy, who doesn't really fit here, who's not going to be here long term, you have to weigh that versus what can you get for him. And maybe if something happens, if somebody gets hurt, you could get a third or fourth round pick, and then maybe then you move him, and you move on.
The Eagles have made some interesting moves this offseason. They added Anthony Harris. They've now added Steven Nelson. They added Eric Wilson on the defensive side of the ball. Do those three guys plus their draft picks represent enough to improve a defense that after a few injuries just didn't have enough depth at all?
Yeah, that remains to be seen. I think the secondary got better. Linebackers, I'm not sure. I know they don't really prioritize linebackers, but, I'm not sure about that group. The D-line, what is Fletcher Cox? Can he kind of bounce back and have a Fletcher Cox type year, which they really need from him, to get double teamed and, help the other guys, get to the quarterback. And it's a new system. How does that change responsibilities? Obviously, it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same. But the defense is going to have to keep them in games. They're not going to win a lot of games. I don't think 38-35. The defense is going to have to keep them in games for them to have a chance at a winning record. In my opinion.
He's Tom Moore. Check out all of his work over at the Bucks County Courier Times. They currently have the 10 best and 10 worst Sixers draft picks over there. He covers all the Phillies sports teams at Tom Moore Philly on Twitter, and he joins us here on the Sports Bastion on 97.3 ESPN. Tom, great stuff today. I appreciate you covering all the bases with us.
Sure, anytime, Josh. Take care.